absence of visible disease is not the absence of suffering. Most of the physicians I encountered genuinely wanted to help, but sometimes what patients need the most, it's not another test or prescription or procedure. It's just to hear someone say, "I believe you."
The Chronic Truth Podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The views expressed by our guests are their personal opinions and do not constitute medical advice. While we share experiences and strategies related to health, neither the host nor the guest are acting as licensed medical professionals unless explicitly stated. Always consult your physician or qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your treatment plan. Listeners assume all risks associated with implementing any information discussed on this show.
Hello, and welcome to the Chronic Truth Podcast. I'm Kimberly Nash. Today, I am honored to welcome Erika Conrad-Wess, author of Nerve, a memoir of chronic pain, medical trauma, and surviving the healthcare system. After more than 2 decades of living with devastating pain of trigeminal neuralgia and anesthesia dolorosa, Erika has transformed her personal journey into a powerful story of resilience, advocacy, and hope. Through her writing and online support community she founded, she is helping thousands of people living with chronic pain feel seen, heard, and understood. Erika, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing this incredible story.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm particularly excited about being on a podcast because of the reach, because I really want to get this story out to as many people as possible. People who are feeling alone or isolated need to know that they aren't alone, and we are legion.
And we're all one. Yeah, that is so true. And that's what I found running this podcast is, it doesn't matter what someone's facing diagnosis-wise. We all have the fear, the isolation, the uncertainty, and depression. So thank you so much. Share a little bit about Erika.
Well, I live in mountains of Western North Carolina. I am a mother to 4 grown children now. And I'm a business owner. I stay pretty busy. And like you said, I've had the facial pain condition since 2004.
Your journey with the chronic facial pain began suddenly and in a life-changing moment. Looking back, what do you wish every patient and every healthcare provider understood about living with an invisible, relentless pain?
And that's a great question. I think the biggest misconception is that if someone looks okay, then they must be doing okay. And chronic pain it doesn't just hurt. It changes the way you think, you work, how you parent, just how you experience the world. So pain really becomes a full-time job that nobody can see. So every decision I make, whether it's to go grocery shopping or go to a birthday party, even just answer the phone, it's filtered through that question, can I handle this right now? For patients, I guess what I want them to know is that they're not weak because they're exhausted. I mean, living with this relentless pain, it requires an incredible amount of energy, even when you're doing nothing at all. I'm not sure if you've heard the term or the spoon theory. As a chronic pain patient, yep, I figured you probably had. Yeah. So, and in the beginning, I didn't really grasp that concept, but over the years, I've realized it's true. So the idea being that, every day you have a certain amount of spoons, which are, I guess, units of energy. And, one day it might take a spoon for me to just get up and brush my teeth. So by the middle of the day, I'm pretty much done. And anyway, it's a helpful metaphor for people who are experiencing this invisible invisible chronic pain. It's a good way for them to explain it to people who aren't experiencing that.
Very true. Very
But
true.
I'm like back to your question though. So for healthcare providers, um, what I'd want most is for them to just remember that the absence of visible disease is not the absence of suffering. So most of the physicians I encountered genuinely wanted to help. But sometimes what patients need the most, it's not another test or prescription or procedure. It's just to hear someone say, I believe you.
Yes.
Empathy goes a very long way in medicine. So,
Yes.
I mean, patients may not remember every medication they were ever prescribed, but I guarantee they remember how a doctor made them feel. And feeling believed is therapeutic in its own right.
Yeah, and it's almost like if you find a doctor that you sit down with, this is my interview process with a doctor. If he is coherent, so to speak, in our conversations and not distracted with, looking at my chart and
Hmm.
actually hearing what I'm saying without, the eye roll or here we go again,
Right,
body
right.
language.
Hmm.
That determines whether or not I keep that doctor or I fire and go on to the next accordingly.
I love how you put that in terms of hiring and firing because uh, many people, I think, don't understand how much power they have in that situation. You know, you are interviewing this doctor, and if you don't feel like it's a good fit, even if it's just this like bad vibe, you can always go to someone else. And I find that people don't really realize that, or they know they can go to someone else, but they feel like the way they're being treated is the way they're going to be treated everywhere. But absolutely, researching your doctors and treating your first appointment like an interview is um, incredibly empowering.
Now, your condition, I'm going to take a couple steps back here. Your
Mhm.
condition started suddenly. What were
Yeah.
the symptoms and, were you stressed in your life that something triggered this to happen? Share a
Uh,
little bit about that.
sure. So when it started, I had three small children under the age of 6. So I think that comes with its own bucket of stress.
Yes.
Um, So, intense full-time mothering, and all of a sudden I get hit with this pain literally out of the blue, which is quite common for TN, for people to report that they were just, doing nothing in particular, and it felt almost like they'd been sucker punched.
Ugh.
Uh, so, you know, in hindsight, I was under a lot of stress at the time. It didn't feel that way, when you're in the thick of
Mhm.
it, it just feels normal.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I was on this track of mothering, homeschooling. Like I was going to make it all happen for my kids. Uh, and this really set me on a completely different course that I would never have chosen.
Exactly. And that's why it's so devastating. We talked a little bit before going on the air that, you walk into this doctor's office and you just want to be heard is all.
Mhm.
You're not coming to him to cry about your woes me. You're having some serious pain and you just want someone to say, I get you.
Mhm.
Um, and that unfortunately didn't happen with you as either. So I'm sorry
Yeah.
for that.
Thank you. It's it's such a common experience. I think most physicians genuinely want to help you. I would say there are very few people who go into medicine for selfish reasons. Um, but for whatever reason, it's still very common for women in particular to be dismissed, and for their concerns to be minimized or completely invalidated. I wouldn't go so far as to say that men don't experience that, uh, but I think it's less frequent because, the medical profession is still very, very much a patriarchy.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
we've come a very, very long way from the days of hysteria, but
Yes.
we're not quite there yet.
Not quite there. And I think too, women tend to take care of our bodies better than men do. Uh,
Yeah.
we hindsight, yeah, we might put it off a couple months, maybe a year, but we go finally get checked out, where
Yeah.
men just ignore it altogether until their significant other or spouse says, "Hey, go get checked out." so,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
yeah. In your memoir, you describe not only the physical pain, but also the emotional toll of navigating the healthcare system. What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned about advocating for yourself when you felt unheard?
Mhm. Well, the hardest lesson that I had to learn was that no one was ever going to care as much about me in my case as I did. Um, I don't mean that critically because, physicians have hundreds, sometimes thousands of patients, and I was just one of them. So I realized I had to become a project manager of my own healthcare. Um, you have to, it's an education, right? So,
Yes.
I had to learn how to read medical documents, how to keep records was important, what I could let go. Well, back to the, to our, back to earlier in the conversation, I had to realize that I could seek second opinions and, because my case was not, it wasn't a life or death emergency. I had the luxury of being able to travel to see specialists and, ask those hard questions and sometimes even challenge the medical professionals' assumptions, though you have to do that very carefully. And I
Yes, I
learned that
agree.
too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, you got to be careful who you step on. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you want to be persistent, but you definitely don't want to be pigeonholed as difficult. Um, but when you're in severe pain, advocating for yourself, first of all, it's incredibly draining,
Yes.
but it can also easily be interpreted as being demanding. Um, but sometimes being persistent is the only thing that keeps you moving toward the right diagnosis or the right treatment. So it's a real balancing act. Well, I just wanted to say that another thing that I learned in my doctor searches is that um, you really want to look for a doctor who's uh, not necessarily certain of everything, but is curious about what your experience is, because my best doctors weren't the ones who had all the answers. They were willing to admit what they didn't know, but wanted to keep moving forward alongside me.
Yes. And that's important. That's part of the whole process of feeling heard. You've got, your your life, your diagnosis, and you're the boss. So you hire and fire accordingly and find that practitioner that's willing to get curious, like you said, and dive into learning about it or seeking out maybe other colleagues that might know more about this realm, but willing to, go that extra mile to help you. Let's talk a little bit about this memoir you wrote.
Yes, let's do that.
Share what brought it on and what inspired it.
Well, I've always been a writer. I've always kept a journal. I think I knew when I was in high school that I would write a book. I, I never expected it to be a book about me, but for several years before I started writing, uh, so many times people would say to me, wow, you really should write a book. And it happened with every sort of extreme medical experience I had. More and more people said that. And I finally realized, this is what I need to do. This is the book that I always knew I would write. And I felt like, in the beginning, my process was very like inward focused and therapeutic. Writing it all down was, you know, sometimes it was cathartic. I'd say other times it was like reliving the trauma. It was very, very difficult. As I was writing, I discovered that this is a book that needs to be shared with other people, that I'm not just telling my story, that my story is representative of every chronic pain patient. And the more people who understand that experience, whether it's mine or someone else's, the more normalized uh, chronic pain becomes, the better it is for all of us.
Yes, and that statement in itself, that it's for everyone. Again, I can't stress enough on this podcast. This podcast isn't about one diagnosis, because it's thousands, if not millions, of different conditions out there. So, one of the most powerful messages in Nerve, which is your memoir, that healing doesn't always mean cured. How did you redefine hope and purpose while living with a condition that medicine couldn't fully fix?
Well, I'll say it certainly didn't come overnight because, for a long time, I believed that healing meant getting my old life back. Um, every new medication, every new procedure, surgery, all of it felt like the goal was to return me to the person I used to be. And over time, then I realized that I was spending years postponing my life, waiting to get back to what I used to be, quote unquote. Um, and my life was, time was going by while I was waiting to get better. Uh, it was a difficult realization, and I'm comfortable saying it now. I do not anticipate that I will ever be cured. This is a very complex syndrome, and I have nerve damage, and you know, but even in recognizing that, it's not defeat, to be a realist. I didn't
Right.
stop hoping, but my definitions changed. I was hoping for a cure, but now my hope lies in, how do I build a meaningful life within this reality? And it's a very different question. So for me, healing became less about eliminating pain and more about reclaiming my identity. So
I
I
love that.
became, oh, thank you. So I guess, well, writing this book, I was becoming an advocate. I was running support groups. I also own a business, which takes considerable energy.
Yes.
Um, so finding purpose in pain, it became almost part of my occupation. And yeah, I can't stress enough that being realistic about what to expect with your medical condition is not defeat. It's just shifting a perspective and enabling yourself to direct hope in a different direction where you may actually have a positive outcome. And to those who don't have that hope right now, who are feeling defeated, I would say just don't measure hope solely by whether your pain goes away, because sometimes hope is found in, you know, if you're in chronic pain, the likelihood is that pain will remain part of your story. but it doesn't have to be the whole story.
I like that. And that's one thing that I've learned going through my own personal journey, and I've shared it on this podcast before. I sunk into a severe depression when I was diagnosed with Hep C. I witnessed my mom. We had contracted it at my birth, and she passed away from it. So I witnessed my fate pass away. And the only person that I knew in my life at the time, back in 2005, no one talked about Hep C. So it was very isolating, high stigmatized. I had two very young children. Our lives mimic. I mean, it's like parallel to the T. My focus was running my companies and making sure their life stayed as normal as possible, even though I was, so sick. I had to process that and grieve the person I used to be.
Yes.
And
Yes,
I think that's the key to this, or being diagnosed with something that is not curable, is go through that grief process. Seek out treatment, seek out help from therapy. My therapist did wonders for me, because she's the one that told me about the gratitude journal. She says, Kim, start off each morning writing what you're thankful for. And so the first entry literally was, I'm thankful for my cup of coffee. And even though I had children, my business, that was the only thing that morning I could think on. And each day now I look back 15 years later at those journal entries, and I cry because I see the transformation and the grieving process let go.
So that's
So
beautiful. That's really beautiful.
Yeah. And so you doing this, and creating is it online support communities that you're?
Yes. Yeah. It's social media based. So, they're
Okay.
Facebook support groups. And
Oh, awesome.
I started, so I have two support groups. I started the first one within a month after my, second brain surgery, because I had become a part of the facial pain community on Facebook, just maybe, 9 months prior. And it was amazing when I found these communities of people who had facial pain conditions. So I formed a group for people who were curious about, interested in, or had already had this particular brain surgery. It's called microvascular decompression. And the idea is that there's a blood vessel resting on the facial nerve, and the surgeon goes into your skull behind your ear and moves the blood vessel off of the nerve. And it's, none of the treatments for facial pain are extremely successful. This is the best hope for durable relief, and it has about an 80% success rate if the surgeon is very, very skilled. So right after that surgery, I knew other people who had also had their surgeries around the same time, and we formed a small support group. I think they were 10 people. And that was at the beginning of 2015. And now today there are close to 7,000 people in the group.
Incredible.
I mean, I never would have
Good for you.
imagined there were that many people that were interested in this or had gone through it. So I started a second group that's just for people who have already had the surgery. And what I tell them always is, you join the main group as someone who has already had the surgery. You join the main group to give support to people who are facing it, and you join the other group to get support from people who have already done it.
And to guide you through it. What a amazing, that I truly believe, and I do recommend people seeking out support with online support groups. The only
Mhm.
thing I red flag here is be careful of the groups that you do join. When I first was diagnosed and I was searching out Facebook groups, there are a lot of negative ones out there.
Oh,
And,
yes.
our diagnosis is negative enough. We don't need to be sitting in there wallowing in negativity all day. Find a
Mhm.
support group like yours that's positive, encouraging, and wants to help you along the journey,
Mhm.
not keep you tied back with negativity.
Yeah, no, I agree about the support groups online 100%. And one of the reasons that I formed my own group was because the large facial pain group, there was so much drama, and
Uh-huh.
you were then witness to people who are everyone is suffering, but then they were fighting amongst themselves, and it didn't feel good. So
Right.
I started this group. We have very strict rules. I've been administrating this group for over 10 years, and I'm there every day because we keep the drama out of the group.
Uh-huh.
Everybody respects the rules, and even with as many members as we have, y- you we don't allow that kind of negativity to,
Beautiful.
or comment threads that devolve into, name calling. You just won't find it
Right,
in our
right.
group. And there are other um, admins who share the same values. And I think probably for any condition, there's a good support group out there.
Beautiful. Now, for our listeners, how can they get in touch with you or your support group?
Okay. I have a website, and it's simply my name, erikaconradwess.com, and no hyphen. And on Facebook, the two support groups, one is called just MVD, like Mary Victor David, uh, Patient Support. And it's a private group, but it is searchable. And then the other one, also a private group, but it's the post MVD support group.
Are they able to, on your website, contact you through that? Do you have a
Yes.
link to? Okay. So
Yes.
for our listeners, right, you're going to be seeing her website pop up. Go on there and reach out to her. If this has touched you, reach out to her. She is a wealth of knowledge. And where can we find your book?
Yes, I'm very excited. And it is on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Within the next week, it should propagate and be on all booksellers online. And you can also get a signed copy on my website.
Beautiful. Sign me up.
Yes.
And it's just been incredible hearing your journey. And I know we only touched like the tip of your journey, but just hearing you and what you've went through, our lives have paralleled, and we're on opposite ends of the continent here.
Yes.
But it's so amazing. And I'm meeting incredible people doing this podcast that I'm like, oh my gosh, she gets me. And just
Right.
hearing your story, I can say, you get me. So
Yes,
I hope you can say,
indeed.
I get you too. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Erika, for coming on and the show today and sharing your very impactful story. You're helping so many patients out there struggling. So thank you.
Well, thank you for giving me a voice through this podcast, and for the work you're doing for people who have chronic illness.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us for another episode of The Chronic Truth. Leave us comments, and if this conversation resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who may need to hear it. And remember, your voice matters, your story matters, and you never have to walk this journey alone. And until next week, not without a fight.